All right, so round two of the college football playoffs has wrapped up, and we have a Final Four. Obviously, if you know me, it's not the Final Four that I would have wanted, but it's what we got. All four teams that had a bye week ended up losing, which is not a big shocker for the most part. I mean, there were some games that were surprising, which I'll get into in a second. But let's go ahead and just get right into them. This one, I am going to do a little bit opposite as I did the last time, where I'm going to start from basically the most recent game and work my way backwards, mainly so I can get past the Georgia game. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Obviously, if you guys have watched me before, you know that I am a Georgia fan. I don't try to hide it. I'm not really thrilled, obviously, with the outcome of this game. Unfortunately, Georgia made just one too many mistakes here. Clown me if you want. I still feel like Georgia is the better team than Notre Dame. If you don't believe me, look at the stats. Georgia had the edge in almost every single category. We just kept shooting ourselves in the foot. There was really only one true touchdown drive that Notre Dame put together all night. Other points, they came from, a botched kick return, a fumble that gave them excellent field position at our own 10-yard line. And on top of that, we had some ridiculous drop passes, which is nothing new. I mean, you've seen Georgia drop passes all year. In fact, I think that they have the most drop passes in the country, but also like stupid penalties, like being in the ref's way on a huge run that, then led to a fumble later on. Jumping off sides when Notre Dame was obviously not going to snap the ball, and, awful play calling that had us throwing a screen pass when we're down 2 touchdowns in the final 5 minutes of the game. So, that kind of stuff. Also, passing the ball in the middle of the field on 4th and 2, also, that'll do it. If we, could have gone into the half, maybe 6-3 like we were supposed to, then I think we win this game. Call me stupid if you want, but it looked like we were going to go into halftime with the score being 6-3 Notre Dame. And if you watch the Texas game, that was the score going into halftime as well. And we came out on top. And I think that Texas is a better team than Notre Dame. And I feel really good about Georgia's chances going into the halftime only down 3. But obviously, that last minute of the half and the beginning of the next half really put Georgia in catch-up mode, putting our backup quarterback in a situation where he had to throw to win. It took away our ability to do what we really wanted to do in running the ball, and it made us one-dimensional and allowed Notre Dame to just keep eating drives and making them long drives while we were, forced to just try something and hope it sticks. And this Georgia team is not really built to make up those big deficits, despite the fact that we have come back in several games and won that way several times this season. They just are built to be a more balanced team that features a lot of the run, which, we weren't able to feature because we had to catch up so much. And yeah, it was really crazy because those like 17 points in like 1 minute of game time. You had the regular field goal that was like on a normal drive, but then the touchdown off of the fumble and that set them on our own 10-yard line, and then the kick return right after that going to the half. That really just zapped us of making anything happen there. The only thing that has given us the ability to make those big comebacks in prior games is Kirby Smart's ability to make good coaching adjustments and Carson Beck's experience. Obviously, we didn't have Carson Beck in this game. And let me be clear, I am not at all blaming this loss on Gunnar Stockton. In fact, he was probably the best part of our offense. And I am really excited for him in the future. But that offensive line really just did not block for him. And he really did the best that he could. I just think that Carson Beck, while he is, I think, a more flawed quarterback, he would have maybe thrown more interceptions. I think that he has that clutch factor and is able to make those big plays when we're down by so much in the second half that would have given him the edge there. But I'm really excited looking at the future of this program under Gunnar Stockton with him in the driver's seat because he was really balling out there. And especially for this being his first start, I am really excited to see what he becomes. He didn't really throw any interceptions, which was really impressive. He made some incredible passes, and he was composed. Those mistakes made it near impossible for him to really have a chance. And also just, having no offensive line help really made it rough and tough on him. But he did a really good job given that situation. Although I didn't necessarily believe it going into this game, I do now believe that this Notre Dame defense is really solid, and you really just can't have those kinds of drop passes, turnovers, and miscues and win a game against a defense like that. The team really needed to galvanize around Stockton, and they didn't, or at least the offensive line didn't. The defense did. I mean, they held Notre Dame to one true touchdown and less than 100 yards passing, and the run game also wasn't really effective for Notre Dame either. But like I said, the offensive line and the receivers dropping passes, just ridiculous. The left side of the offensive line especially just got dominated, and that in combination with the miscues I noted earlier. At the end of the day, this loss really, stings a little bit less than some of the other ones because I really didn't feel like Georgia had a real chance at a national championship this year. It's one of the worst Georgia teams I've seen in a while, so I'm really just proud that they made it as far as they did. The fact that they won the SEC championship game was really impressive for me. Also, I want to point out that for the most part, this game was a very well officiated game, which has felt very rare this season and even in the playoffs. So I was really appreciative that I didn't feel like this game was robbed from Georgia or anything like that. I didn't agree with every call, but on the whole, I did feel like it was a fair game. As for Notre Dame, I don't really know what to think. I know that their defensive line is the real deal. I doubted them before because of their size and who they played, but they were really able to scream past our offensive line and get to Stockton like almost every single play very, very quickly. And I still think Notre Dame is very one-dimensional. They really can't throw the ball very well, and I don't think that kind of team is going to win the national championship game, but still a huge win for the Irish, even if they don't make it all the way, which I don't think they will. It's a huge win for their program. I think it's going to be really great for their recruiting and truly just a statement win for them. Moving on now to Oregon versus Ohio State, and Ohio State is the real deal. It seems like that win against Tennessee was not a fluke at all like some had thought. They have, in fact, put it all together and become an elite team that I firmly believe is going to win the national championship this year. They made the number one team in the country who was previously undefeated look like a G5 team. Like, legitimately, I know Oregon tried to make it look like a more respectable game in garbage time, but it was not. Ohio State was able to do whatever they wanted to on offense, like 500 total yards on offense. Are you kidding me? The Oregon defense is no pushover either. I mean, they've been great all year, but against this version of the Buckeyes, 319 through the air, 181 on the ground. That's what Ohio State did. And on defense, Ohio State absolutely clamped up Oregon's run game. If the line for Oregon rushing yards was set at plus or minus 0 rushing yards, and you bet the over, you would lose money. Oregon had negative 23 rushing yards. That is disgusting. Sure, you can argue that's because they were in a hole early and they had to, pass most of the game to try to come back. But even with that being the case, they still didn't even outgain Ohio State through the air. So that point is really moot. And usually if you see lopsided games like this where there's two good teams playing, you expect a lot of turnovers, but no, 0 turnovers, not really that many penalties either. Oregon had actually more time of possession. This was no fluke game. This was one team dominating another team because they are just a better team, full stop. And I don't think Oregon is a fraud team either. I think they're very good, but they were outmatched against them. And I think that the score is going to be similar in the rest of the games that Ohio State plays this postseason, and I hate it, but it's true. I think they're the best team in the country by far. They always had the most talent in the country, but they had not put it all together, and they finally have, and with that, there's nobody that's going to beat them because there was no other elite teams this year. The best chance that we had was Oregon, and we saw how that panned out here. Moving on now to Arizona State versus Texas, and I bet that this game was closer than many of you might have expected. I told you guys Arizona State was no pushover. Granted, I also did not expect this game to be as close as it was. In fact, I would argue, like many other people, that Arizona State should have won the game. It was another instance of officiating really determining the outcome of a game, and just so you guys can see, in the final minutes of this game, the refs reviewed this play right here for targeting, and they decided that it did not meet the targeting requirements. And as you can see on your screen, if you have eyeballs, this is absolutely targeting, and it's not even close. How the officiating crew looked at this and decided that it was not targeting is beyond me. We ran into a similar situation in the Miami versus Cal game. Absolutely insane that multiple people looked at this and decided this was not targeting. Like I said with the Miami situation, the only explanation I can imagine is that the call was made intentionally wrong for whatever reason you want to make up or think of. You could not convince me that the refs believe they made the correct call here. And I was rooting for Texas. But don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and lie about what is obvious. And this was pretty obvious. If that call had been called correctly, Arizona State would have been able to ice the game and possibly kick a game-winning field goal. I mean, that wouldn't have guaranteed a win for Arizona State because, they're not really known for their long-range field goals this season. But it would have put them in a more advantageous spot where I think that they have a higher likelihood of winning. They really got robbed here, I feel like. Otherwise, this was an incredible game. Arizona State really fought their way back into this game, took it to overtime, and performed well above the expectation in this game and also just the season as a whole. Cam Scatterbo is an absolute monster and one of the best players in the country. After seeing him in this game, I wish he would have been in the Heisman contention because he is incredible. I don't think he should have won it, but man, what a player. Sam Leavitt, he played incredible against the strong Texas defense. And as for Texas, I still think there's a lot for them to clean up if they want to have any chance in their next game against the Buckeyes. Quinn Ewers plays excellent for the first 2 quarters of the game, but then crumbles in the second half. And I don't really know why. And it's not just a Quinn Ewers thing. It's a kind of a whole team thing for Texas. I don't know if they just get tired or what, but they have so much talent on that team. But they really need to put it together like Ohio State if they want to win it all. That's the only way that they're going to be able to do it is if they can put all that talent together in a short amount of time like Ohio State did. And on special teams, they really need to figure out how to get Bert Auburn to be able to make kicks when the game is on the line. I've seen way too many times where missed field goals are a huge factor in important moments. Obviously, they won this game, so it didn't matter, but I've seen that happen way too many times where he's missed big moment kicks, and he's definitely going to need to be on the top of his game if they want to beat Ohio State. Next, I have Penn State versus Boise State, and it still baffles me that this is the route that Penn State got in the playoffs. I watched them play SMU last week, and I watched them play Boise State this week, and while both games were definitely convincing, they didn't really tell me much. Penn State just doesn't look like they belong. That's all I really got from it. I know that may sound weird since they covered the spread in both games, but they just don't look like a national championship team to me, especially when we are in this bracket with that Ohio State team. Once again, all they have to do in this game was, sit back and watch their opponent implode on themselves without doing all that much to really take the game themselves. And they had a really difficult time closing out this game. They just kept giving Boise State opportunity after opportunity to come back, but Boise State just couldn't get out of their own way here. 2 missed field goals, 4 turnovers, several of which were in the red zone, and some very costly penalties kept this game out of reach for Boise State. Honestly, I felt like if you take away the mistakes, Boise State played a better game than Penn State did because, stats will back that up, but obviously those miscues are part of the game. They had more total yards, though, and actually had double the amount of passing yards almost. So the miscues were really what killed them here. They moved the ball better than Penn State, but they could not get it done in the red zone. As for Penn State, I don't really know what is going on with play calling there because they could have had this game wrapped up in a clean bow way sooner than they did if they just ran the ball. Boise State could not stop the run game to save their lives, but they kept trying to do these cute throws or deep balls, and it just was not working. Drew Aller is not that guy. Penn State is not that team. You just got to put the ball in the hands of your best players, get the win, and get out of there. But the Cupcake teams are in the rearview mirror now, so it's time to see what they are really made of. Boise State put up a good fight, but they are not physical enough and not, good enough really to compete in these playoffs. Even if they would have beaten Penn State, they're just not good enough to win a championship. So, Penn State looks heavily flawed and overall pedestrian, but they were good enough to beat the Broncos here. And, they do have a great defense. I'll give them that, but their offense does need some work. I'm very curious as to how this matchup against Notre Dame is going to look in the next round because I think that could be very interesting. 2 teams I think have a lot of flaws. So we'll see who comes out on top to end up, probably losing to whoever they play in the national championship game. That's all for this video, guys. If you guys want to see my predictions for the semifinal round of the playoffs, stay tuned on this channel. There'll be a video up soon. So, please like, comment, and subscribe, and hope you guys enjoy the video. Peace.